This is the 40U Tech Startups podcast. The podcast in which you hear all about the startups and spin-offs from the 4 technical universities in the Netherlands. From the challenges they face to the ecosystems they accelerate in, here we talk about what it takes to flourish and make impact on an international playing field. Brought to you by the 40U. Welcome to a new episode of the Dutch 40U Tech Startups podcast. I'm your host, Vera Boertien, and today I am joined by 3 guests, and we're going to talk about the acceleration and valorization of deep tech. So I'm joined with Kenneth Heijns, Roy Kolkman, and Arjan Goudsblom. Kenneth, can you introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, thanks for having us on this podcast. My name is Kenneth Heijns. I work for Delft University of Technology as the director for the Innovation and Impact Center, doing anything that is required to make impact for a better society.
Perfect. We love to hear it. And Roy, you do something similar, right?
Yes, indeed. My name is Roy Kolkman. I'm responsible for the UTwente office of University of Twente, where we help researchers in creating impact from their research.
Thank you. And then we also have Arjan. You're not from a university, right?
No, I'm not. No, I'm actually working for an organization called Techleap and some other organizations. The main thing, I work with early stage science-based startups. I organize the academic startup competition in the Netherlands. And I also work with the AI coalition to improve the conditions for AI startups in the Netherlands as well.
Perfect. So all of you do quite a bit for the deep tech ecosystem within the Netherlands. So what is the current state of deep tech? And Arjan, I think you're the right person to answer that because Techleap just revealed a nice report on the state of Dutch deep tech.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I mean, there's mixed messages, I would say, with the deep tech ecosystem. This morning we're at Hello Tomorrow currently in Paris, and there's some encouraging figures around investment for deep tech in Europe-wide. But on the other hand, you also see the number of companies startups working in deep tech diminishing. That came from the report in the State of Dutch Tech. But then I guess the positive thing is that there's a lot of urgency to create deep tech companies, right, from society. So I do feel that there's a lot of momentum in Europe, and there's a lot of, I guess, a more sense of urgency to make things happen as well.
And do you both, Roy and Kenneth, also see that urgency?
Yes, we definitely see that urgency. We should create more deep tech companies, and also believe that we have an excellent scientific basis in the Netherlands. There's sufficient deep tech research. We're really excellent in the research, but we are good in creating spin-off companies, and we should be able to do much more to get it to an excellent level, and that comes through various factors. But I think we can do a lot more to create more deep tech spin-off companies.
Mm-hmm. Do you see that in a similar way, Kenneth?
Well, I have nothing particularly to add to this analysis by Roy and Arjan. It does, of course, require a little more in-depth looking at the different themes within deep tech. And so, I see some very encouraging signs when I look in my own sort of local regional ecosystem. Of course, the quantum computing springs to mind when we talk about Delft. We'll get to some more sticky points probably in the course of this conversation, where we think, things, as Roy said, could use some improvements to really get that potential that's there and accelerate, as you rightly said.
Yeah, so on the one hand, we're doing quite well, but on the other hand, there's a lot to win currently.
Yeah, I think in many ways we should not be complacent, but then again, also we should be proud of where we are at this point in time. Mm-hmm. I think when you look at just on a work floor level, if I look at the colleagues around me, And I think back 10, 15 years ago, the level of knowledge and the skills and the attitude with which we approach, this whole chain that we need to sort of orchestrate together with all these different organizations in the Netherlands to make it work. It's quite amazing the steps that we've taken. Yet still, there's this feeling where there's so much more potential and so much more need from society, given the Draghi report and all that.
Right.
There's no time for complacency. But then again, we shouldn't be sort of be too harsh on ourselves with the strides that we've made.
Do you agree, Arjan?
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, I haven't been in the ecosystem for that long because I came back to the Netherlands about 5 years ago.
Right.
But over the last 5 years, I see there's been a lot of trust built, I think, particularly in the ecosystem around universities, and that's the basis, I guess, for progress, right? So I think we have an excellent sort of foundation for building out this ecosystem.
Right.
I mean, the urgency is there, the quality is there. But now it's about acceleration, right? Getting more ventures out there. That's what Roy said as well. We need to get those ventures out. We need to get those scientists to actually engage in entrepreneurial activities, to have venture builders get involved with universities as well, to help build those companies, right? So this is an exciting time, I guess, right? And there's a lot of potential.
Yeah.
You just need to get it done.
But I think it's interesting what you say, that we already have that foundation. Because I think that's something that you also see today. Because for our listeners, we're currently in Paris for Hello Tomorrow. And that's not just a 4TU mission, and it's also not 4TU and RVO like it's so many times, but it's 4TU, RVO, TNO, Techleap, InvestNL. We've all come together to, accelerate deep tech, really. So that foundation to collaborate, I think that's really important and very necessary within an ecosystem that's so small like the Netherlands.
Yeah. And it's also about consistency of people being engaged, right? I mean, I think now, Roy's been around, I think, for a while, and there's other people that have been building on this for a number of years now. And that also, obviously, you build your experience and in how to build those companies, right? So I think the cumulative experience of the ecosystem has multiplied over the last few years, and obviously with the knowledge sharing that takes place as well, you see an acceleration of capacity, I guess, to make things happen.
Yeah. And how do we compare to the rest of Europe or the rest of the world when it comes to this?
Well, there's still a lot of room to gain, right? Yeah. So, that's exactly where it sits, right? So I think, and I totally agree that we shouldn't be complacent of where we are, because now I think now it's a time, I guess, to catch up with a lot of the other countries out there.
Right.
And there's a lot of elements that play a role there. We're in France, right? So there's a lot of government engagement in this sector in deep tech. There's a lot of funding going there. They're serious about building this ecosystem and the capital that comes with it and the investment that comes with it.
Yeah.
That's something we can learn from. Yeah.
It's a major part. Yeah. But I also want to grab back to what Kenneth just said, because you mentioned that there's already lots to be proud of. Can you name something from the last couple of years that you're very proud of that we've accomplished as an ecosystem?
Well, you could go into a number of successful venture building trajectories, and the investment rounds that we've seen have been very successful. But I think I would agree with Arjan and Roy that maybe the strength of the Netherlands is exactly what we're doing here at Hello Tomorrow, the trust building, trying to so a lot of talent in supporting the venture building. You can find right here, right now, as we speak, and the level of trust amongst all these different players is. I'm new to this Hello Tomorrow scene, if you
right?
Like, and I find it amazing that how much trust there is, how much cooperation, and yes, there are still many sort of interfaces that need to be sort of optimized, if you like. But this is we're in a good place, and to scale it up. That's I think we'll get to the funding part and so on and so forth. But I think we're in a good place. The European Union is moving into a new era where this will only be more important. So for us as universities, we will need to sort of align our efforts in that way. But at the same time, I think both Roy and I will probably agree on that. We should be also mindful to keep that sort of research base very, very strong. So if you talk about, in terms of a funnel, that you need to feed the funnel, and so not to forget that we take good care of that base.
Yeah. Do you agree, Roy?
Yeah, I fully agree with Kenneth. We should keep the funnel, the fundament up to the level that we have it now. And that's really important to be able to create sufficient spin-outs in the future.
Yeah.
So that's really an important one. But another factor which is important is also to encourage new researchers to start thinking about valorization. That also has to do with recognition and rewarding. Not only looking at the excellent science that you're doing and the excellent teaching, but also taking into account the valorization activities that they are conducting, and also stimulate them to actively think about valorization, to have a valorization roadmap, to think about the next steps for their fundamental research and how to get that research result to the market, to create impact in society, to find an application. That's really important for that entire route, and for that you need many stakeholders.
Yeah.
And each university with its detail on itself is too small. So you need to cooperate. So a nice example of what we have achieved last year is within the thematic technology transfer programs. There we have shown that we are really able to work together on a broad theme, that we can share knowledge, expertise, networks, and in this way build more and better spin-off companies. And that's why I'm also very looking forward to a continuation of the TTT program, which is now being funded by EZ and RVO.
Yeah.
So by economic affairs and so I'm really happy that economic affairs and RVO are now opening up a new TTT program in which we can continue all the learnings that we have built up in this first 5 years, that we continue that with many more partners in the ecosystem, so across the knowledge institutes, but also align through the entire system with also the venture builders, the investors, the accelerators, to do things together, because we cannot do it on our own, and we have to really to optimize the entire system.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about the TTT program earlier in this podcast during the TTT Team Up Day. But another thing that you worked on in the past couple of years was the deal terms. Can you share a bit more about that?
Yeah, one of the hurdles that we were facing in starting up spin-off companies is that there was a large variety in the ways that universities were making the deals with the spin-off companies. There are various ways you can build up that deal, and there was no transparency to the outside world. No university had published on their website how they were making the deal. So what we did is, together with Techleap, together with investors, together with founders, we made an investigation of what is being done and what are the needs in the system. There you see that there was also lots of variety, that some investors would like to see equity-only deals, some want to see only royalty deals. But there should be space for that in the way the deal terms are built. And what we finally did is that we set up a set of transparent deal term principles along which the universities can do their deal making, in which we balance the interests of the founders, the investors, as well as the universities that not can give away the intellectual property for free, but they have to ask something back. And if you balance that in a proper way and you communicate about that, what you ask from the spin-off companies, then you can really speed up the deal making process.
Right.
We've seen that really speeds up the process, that doesn't take so long anymore, and it's also aligned with what the investors are expecting to see.
Yeah, so it's more clear, more transparent, and fairer, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Also, that fair is really important, and also that you trust the founders, that they are
Right.
willing to build a successful company.
Yeah, exactly.
When I think, I had nothing to do with the deal. I'm just here to sort of the praise for the process. But I think also, the four universities of technology joining forces and actually putting forward like these deal terms that are now being adopted throughout the Netherlands for deep tech purposes. I think that's another sign of maturing the way we sort of collaborate in the Netherlands, because there's no need to just compete on an institutional level, because we're all competing for a higher goal, right?
Right, and the Netherlands is too small.
It is way too, you could even the geographical. I know it does mean something, but in a way it's it doesn't matter, right? And so I find that very, very encouraging to see that the four University of Technology, coming from quite a competitive background, now join forces to really do something, not just for the Universities of Technology themselves, but also for the broader use.
Yeah.
Yeah, from a founder perspective, I mean, we look at it from a founder perspective, Techleap, right? And obviously it has helped really a lot in giving them a framework, like a conversation starter almost, right? So they're coming more from like equal point of information, because
Right.
obviously a founder coming out of university, a scientist, has no idea about, IP negotiations or, what to look for, right? So I think the framework has really helped to kind of put them at a, give them a document, I guess, to kind of work from, right?
Right. Yes.
But this morning, Roy and I were talking about this as well. I still think there is room for improvement, because they still don't have all the arguments, I guess, right? So they have the framework, but they don't really have the arguments to negotiate with the universities. So there's still, I think, a little bit of inequality in terms of the two teams that are sitting behind the table.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can do a bit more at that, so they actually are well equipped to have that conversation with their TTO.
Yeah. So, what is needed for the future? And let's take that in a broader sense, not only in terms of the deal terms, but also for accelerating deep tech. Because I also heard, I think, from all of you that you mentioned funding. So, what is needed to make sure that deep tech innovations actually go to market and are able to scale up?
Well, I mean, the funding, in my perspective, the funding gap, in my perspective, is mainly around deep tech companies that require a lot of capital to kind of scale up. There's no really any sort of capital facility for first of a kind factory, for example, where you need a lot of money to kind of set things up.
Yes.
And so I think that's mainly there that I think we need to do better. I think in terms of early stage deep tech companies, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's money there that people can tap into to build the initial phase of their company.
Such as TTT.
TTT is fantastic, right? I mean, that's just I think a great start. I think we can build on that and have more of that.
Yeah. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree with that, and really TTT is fantastic, and other instruments to really kick off the companies. But you also see that after that, there's still a gap. There's still a challenge. And one of the challenges is that deep tech is taking long. It's really taking a long time before it's getting to the market. And that uncertainty in that time frame that it's taking to get it to the market, that makes it also difficult to handle for some investors. So that's also a challenge with deep tech. How do you make an investor investing in an early stage in deep tech? Well, they cannot see yet all the timelines, and they cannot see the time when the product is going to market. So that's also a challenge in investing in deep tech.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it takes a lot of time, a lot of money before you actually see a result.
Yeah, exactly, and it also has to fit with the time frame of the investor in investing in the investing in closing of the funds. That's what also has to be taken into account, then it has to fit with the scope of the investor.
Yeah.
In that very, very, very early stage.
And Kenneth, when you look at it, what is really needed for deep tech acceleration to come off the ground and to flourish?
Well, maybe one question for Arjan, from my point of view, would be, you see the changing roles, and we like to look at the venture capitalists and their role. And so my question would be, do you see sort of the changing role of governments? Does government still, play the role that fits sort of the phase that we're in?
Well, this morning actually in the conference there was some interesting talks about this, right, and the role of governments in particularly deep tech funding.
Exactly.
And the interesting bit was that for governments to be more meaningfully involved, they need to change roles from like giving subsidies to actually become a procurement agency, I guess, for startups. And it means also that they can invest in first of a kind factories, for example, as a customer. Rather than giving a subsidy to build a company, because it kind of builds in a market pool effect almost. So I think they need to think about different ways of providing capital, public money to these types of companies.
Yeah, that's maybe going into your question to me. Roy already mentioned sort of the culture, and I mean, this is always a sort of a vague topic if you don't get specific about it. But I think much of it has to do with sort of the willingness to take risk. So to me, as someone sort of in the midst of university academic life and with students, and I love being in the midst of that. I really see a change in sort of the entrepreneurial attitude. So, let alone whether you are an entrepreneur in the truest sense of the word, but to be entrepreneurial.
Yes,
and that's also something that I would say. I would love to see our governments around Europe sort of move into a more entrepreneurial state of mind. Because it just doesn't cut it to stay in the traditional role of a government that stays out of the way of business.
Yeah.
No, we need you, and that's the same thing with academic life. Universities, all they too need to sort of change their attitudes, because yes, we are all there for change. We all know the grand challenges. But sometimes we forget that time is running out, right? There is also the aspect of time. So it really needs a change in attitude. And I think that's something that we're all, Roy from UTwente and our colleagues in Eindhoven and in Wageningen and me in Delft, that's something we try to sort of, actively help.
Yeah.
And this is the hard part, right? So I think we spoke about, we kind of went on a really positive note to start the conversation with, but I think, the foundation is there, but this is the hard part, right? So it's actually really difficult. And there's also an obligation in that, if you have your foundation,
Definitely.
What's next, right? And the next thing is in increasing risk appetite within the whole ecosystem, right? From government to universities as well. And this is where it kind of becomes a bit more tricky, because this is a leap of faith, I guess, in some of those companies.
Yeah, but the strange thing is, like, if you don't make the leap of faith, that's also a leap of faith.
Yeah, yeah.
You're banking on stuff working out for itself, which I think is a bad bet.
Doing nothing is also doing something. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think the leap of faith is actually I see Indiana Jones, right? Stepping on that invisible bridge.
Yeah.
Is there a different path? I don't think there is. So in a way, we have not many choices, maybe only one.
So this is a call to action to everyone listening. Be more entrepreneurial, take the leap, and actually, well, I don't want to sound sappy, but be the change you want to see in the world.
Couldn't say it better than you.
Well, on that note, I think that's a wrap for this episode. I want to thank you all for joining me, and have a lot of fun at the rest of Hello Tomorrow, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.